My favorite vegetable is sweet corn, Silver Queen sweet corn, because it's the sweetest and best corn that you can have when you cut it off the cob, put it in a skillet and fry it on top of the stove like Southerners used to fry corn years ago.
Hi garden friends, I'm Walter Reeves, and if you like figs, today's your day because Ray Given is going to show us how to propagate your favorite figs, and then I'm going to show you how to properly plant a balled and burlap tree. With a great big heave and a hoe, we put it into a hole in the ground and give this tree a long life. All this and more today on Gardening in Georgia.
Funding for Gardening in Georgia is provided by supporters of Georgia Public Broadcasting. Thank you. Production partnership comes from
the University of Georgia College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, your gateway to a rewarding career in urban agriculture as a nursery owner, garden director, and more. Bright futures in urban agriculture await students who want to make a difference in the world.
Walter, I have a fig I'd like you to try. It's this one right here. You know, the dark
It's
fig.
really dark. It looks ripe.
It's called Sal's fig.
Sal. A very nice
Right.
person, I'm sure.
I'm sure he would. He had to be to have a fig named after him.
Wow. Oh, Ray, this is good stuff. Ray Given. Ray Given is feeding me figs today because Ray Given is the fig coordinator for the North American Fruit Explorers organization, and he grows 70 different kinds of figs in Middle Georgia just so he can evaluate them and tell me which ones are the best to eat. But Ray has agreed to teach me how to propagate figs because once this Sal has touched my lips, I'm thinking I might need a Sal to go home and plant in my garden too, right? So, where do we start?
Well, first of all, you can't buy Sal's commercially. It's not available commercially in the Southeast. You're going to have to propagate it yourself. Fortunately, here's a pot of earth, and here's some pruning shears.
Let me finish the fig here.
Oh, well, okay. I'll let you finish the fig if you insist on it.
Okay, that was a good fig.
Okay, here you go. And if you'll cut off the branch, this branch here as close to the stem as you can.
So basically what you're trying to do is to get a, looks like 6-inch maybe, or 8-inch long cutting.
6 to 8 inches, right.
Okay.
This is a little on the short side, but it'll do.
I'm cutting it right close to the stem there.
Okay, now,
Okay,
it has 4 leaves, and we're going to try to get this the stem growing, and it doesn't have much ability to suck up moisture, so we're going to have to reduce the number of leaves. Pluck off those bottom 2 leaves, if you don't mind.
One there. Okay, I got 2 leaves left, right?
Okay, now what you need to do is stick it into the dirt. That's the technical term we use.
The dirt. All right, we got dirt in a pot right here.
Actually, it's synthetic soil, but
I'm assuming I can put my finger in there and make a little hole for it, right?
Yeah, you can. Or you can just stick it straight in. Okay. It really doesn't make any difference. I will write the label for you.
And that's important because you want to know if you're propagating a lot of figs, you want to be sure this is Sal's and this is Jim's and this is Walter's and this is Ray's, right?
Here you go.
I want to show that for just a second here. I want to put it down on the table so we can look at it. So what you did is you have a piece of aluminum. I'm sure you purchased this, but you could probably make that out of an aluminum pie pan or something, couldn't you?
You could. I've seen people make them out of soda cans too.
Okay. And then you just took a pencil and wrote the name of the fig right there on the tag so that when you attach it to a stem, you'll know what it is.
Right.
Okay.
Now, that's kind of a smaller stem to attach to. So what I do with these young plants, I simply take it like this and stick it into the soil right next at the edge of the pot.
So you won't wrap it around there, but
right.
you see the wire sticking up right
The next step, if you'll take the soda bottle, you're just holding it though, is to water the plant.
So this is pretty simple. All I've done so far is take a cutting 6 or 8 inches long, stuck it in some potting soil, or some dirt, as you say, and then you've watered it.
Okay, there we go.
I'll go ahead and put the top on it right here.
Okay, that'd be fine.
So basically what you're trying to do is you give it sort of a greenhouse effect, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. And let me water it in real good. A little more water never hurt anything.
Do I take the top off of the
No.
soft drink bottle?
No, absolutely not. What you're going to do is we're going to set this in partial shade for about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. It depends on how soon the plant starts to grow.
Right.
When it starts to grow, that's when we loosen up the cap a little bit.
And take it off a little bit, a little
Little bit.
circulation in there.
Right. Loosen it, set it on there loosely for a day or two, and then take the lid off
Okay.
and see how it does. If it doesn't do any wilting or anything nasty like that, we can remove the bottle.
And then you take the whole thing off,
Right.
and you think, well, man, this thing is rooted inside.
That's
it.
right. It will be rooted if it's growing vigorously.
That's pretty
And
easy.
it should be in about a month's time.
Are there, I mean, this seems so simple. There are other ways. There got to be other ways that people have tried and failed and have somehow just never, ever gotten around to being successful with.
Well, there is another method. Let me show you that one too. If it'll just take a
flip this
minute. Yeah. And let's see. Something I'm
this
going to
one real
prune off
quick
anyway,
here.
so
All right,
this one
back
doesn't
in the
matter.
back.
You can't see this very well, but we just take another stem
Okay.
and we pluck off all of the leaves
And you do this in the summer or in the spring, or what time of year do you do
any
it?
time of year.
Okay.
We pluck off all of the leaves,
Gotcha.
trim it up a little bit. Here we've got a piece about 6 inches long. What I will do is I'll put this in a plastic bag, a Ziploc bag, zip it closed, and put it in the refrigerator. Now, some figs.
It seems like it's going to be real cold and not very happy
Yeah,
inside.
oh, it'll be so happy you won't believe it. It will be, I guarantee. Some figs like to be cold for quite a while.
Yeah.
Some just briefly. This particular variety likes about 3 months in the fridge. You put it in the fridge, keep it in that Ziploc bag for about 3 months, and then you simply stick it into a pot. You water it. You don't bother to cover it with a lid though. Put it in the shade and stand back, and it should be growing in about 2 or 3 weeks' time.
Now, I knew a guy who one time would take cuttings sort of like that. It was in the fall, if I'm not mistaken, and he would take the cuttings and just jab them in the dirt.
You can do that too. In fact, figs are so easy to propagate that figs are one of the oldest domesticated fruits known to man because you can do it from cuttings, both these green leaf and the dormant leaf cuttings, dormant stem cuttings, that is, and you can also do air layering. You can graft them. You can even grow them from seed.
They have little tiny, tiny seed, though. I don't think I want to try that. It's a little too complicated.
They grow very much like tomatoes. Tomatoes are very easy. Nothing to it. There's nothing difficult about figs at all. They don't have very many pest problems. They do have some, and unfortunately there are not very many approved insecticides for use with figs. I recommend sanitation as your best measure.
Oh, well, you're talking about pests, and let me confirm this because it sounded so crazy and I can't believe it, but you're the one that they told me had said this, and that is that you said that you could get rid of nematodes, those little microscopic worms that attack figs commonly, with fire ants.
Yes. But unbelievable, but true.
I am not handling fire ants and putting them on the ground.
You don't have to do that.
What do you do?
Okay, suppose this pot became infested with nematodes. Treatment with fire ants would be very easy. You simply take the pot and set it on a mound of fire ants.
What is that going to do?
Well, I think fire ants will enter the pot, and they will eat the nematodes from the roots.
Those little microscopic nematodes, there are no chemicals in the world, it seems like, that are registered for a homeowner to use against nematodes on figs, but the fire ants do the job for you.
That's my experience in about 4 or 5 cases where I've tried it.
I'm still not sure that I'm going to do it. I'm not sure that's a university recommended method of doing it.
It isn't.
But I knew that if you'd said it, I had to confirm it there. Nematode control through fire ants. Well, Ray, this is great information. Can I have this cutting? As long as I put it in a shady place?
Sure, you got it.
All right,
You got
thank
it.
you, sir. Sal's Figs is coming to my house, and I'm going to enjoy some figs real soon. Don't chop off the exposed roots of large trees. Fill the space between them with planting soil and plant a ground cover like green and gold, chain fern, Lenten rose, or variegated hosta. Look for the beautiful purple lacy flowers of passion flower. The leaves are a favorite food of Gulf fritillary butterflies, and the flowers mature into an edible egg-shaped fruit called a maypop. Household ants and roaches are easier to control with gel baits than with sprays. Several products are available. Place small dabs of gel any place you see these pests. fall offers the best time to plant trees and shrubs. I mean, look at it from the viewpoint of the plant. The soil is still warm at 70 degrees. It's gradually lowering over the fall months. And for a plant's roots, that's fabulous because that's when they grow their best. As far as the leaves go, the leaves are thinking, man, the temperatures are cooling off. I don't need a lot of water, so I don't need to scream at the roots to supply the water. The roots can do what they want to, exploring the soil around it. So when fall comes, that's the time, the best time in the whole year to think about planting trees and shrubs. Now we're going to plant a tree today. I'm going to show you all the details about how to plant a tree. And a couple of things you need to think about before you plant your tree is what plant have you chosen? How big is it? What's it going to do? And is it in the right situation? Right plant, right place. That's the first question. The tree that we've chosen is a Coosa dogwood. Now, Coosa dogwood is different from the regular Florida dogwood that we see in the springtime. It blooms in, April sometime, real white, covered in flowers, no leaves on it. The Coosa dogwood, on the other hand, has leaves on it in May when the flowers finally start appearing. It's a really spectacular sight in May to see a plant covered in white flowers, but it's got leaves on it too, unlike the Florida dogwood. So another thing you have to think about is how big does it get? And this Coosa dogwood gets around, I've seen it 30 feet high, but 20 is more on the average, so 20 feet tall. Make sure we don't have any utility lines around, because there's nothing more heartbreaking than having a nice looking tree hacked to death by the utility people to make sure the electricity continues to flow. So we want to have the right plant in the right place, and we want to have it in the right situation in the landscape. Next thing we have to think about is how to plant it correctly. And the size of the area that will loosen in order to plant this dogwood is determined by the size of the root ball. Now this root ball is 2.5 feet, maybe 36 inches. We'll call it 2.5 to 3 feet. The area that we're going to loosen is going to be 3 times the width of the root ball. So 8 to 9 feet is about right of an area we'll loosen. Now notice that I'm not saying that you have to dig a hole that is 9 feet wide. That's a lot of work, and I'm not into work in the garden. What I want to do instead is to choose an area that I can loosen the soil around it. The roots can explore that soil, but I don't have to dig a big hole and take all the dirt out of it and then replace the dirt in there. This is where I want to do my planting right here. So I'll go around about 4.5 feet in all directions from this center point. I use my mattock to sort of mark the line to know where to dig. All right, that's a nice wide area. And then I'll use my shovel in the middle and just start in the middle and go in a spiral around it, loosening big clods of dirt, chopping them up. I'll take away as many weeds as I see, but I'm not going to be obsessive about it. But I'll try to loosen the ground about 8 or 9 inches deep and make it thoroughly soft in this area. Now that we have our area loosened, it's time to dig the hole in the middle to put our root ball in. But the depth of the hole is actually going to be determined by how deep the root ball is. And that may be a little bit less deep than we think it is. Come here, let me show you. You see, I know, and you should know too, that the roots of trees are generally within the first 12 inches to 14 inches from soil surface. Now this root ball, heck, it's 2.5 feet deep. And I'll bet you there aren't any roots down at the bottom. So I'm going to check there and find out, and then if I don't find any roots and just find dirt there, I'll knock it off. And that way I'll reduce the size of the root ball and the depth of the hole that I have to dig. Now the tool that I'm going to use to initially cut through the wire, it's called a bolt cutter. You can see this. You probably have a handy neighbor who has a bolt cutter. They're really heavy duty, and you'll need that for the thickness of the wire right here. But I can use this bolt cutter to just clip right through the wire. See how easily it cuts through? Yeah, there are a couple of roots in here, but really not a lot. I'm going to take my shovel and knock some of that dirt off and just see really if we get any good roots or not so many. Notice as I go that you're not seeing a taproot here at the bottom. There are very, very few instances where you'll find a taproot in the southeast, particularly when a tree is growing in clay, as this one was. Almost always they'll be real fine roots like you see here. because the taproot occurs just when it's a young thing, when it's just a little sprout. You know, I know there are roots there, but I still think we can loosen and get some more soil off of here. So I'm going to take another ring of wire off. Now eventually our goal is going to be to remove all of the burlap from around the root ball here, as well as the wire cage. And it doesn't hurt to do a little exploring on your own. This doesn't hurt the tree particularly, to knock some of the dirt off here, because we're leaving the roots in place. I'm just being careful to loosen the dirt, see what's going on here. All right, well, that's about enough. Well, now we've at least knocked off 6 or 7 inches off the bottom of the ball and burlap part here, and it feels like I've got a flare root right there. So I'm okay. So now I need a hole. This is my determination. I need a hole about 2 feet deep and about 2.5 feet wide, and that is where I'll eventually roll the tree over and plant it. Now that I have the root ball in position at the side of my hole, I can take off the remnants of this cage. Now, in every situation, it's not necessary to take the cage off, but I'll tell you, there's some pretty good research now that says that it really is best to take as much of it off as you possibly can. And so that's what I'm doing. Of course, the burlap comes off as a matter of course, because burlap, even though I know the garden center employee will tell you that it will eventually rot, it'll eventually rot in 3 or 4 years, and all that burlap keeps roots from penetrating, and you know, that's not what I want. I want roots to penetrate very easily here. So I take all the burlap off every time. Okay, the moment of truth. Wire bent back, tree in place. Ready to go. And come on, here we go. Down in there. Does this tree have a distinct lean to it to you? We gotta straighten it up. Oh, that's lots better, lots better. Let's take the rest of the burlap off now. We're not trying for perfect. We're just trying to get as much as we possibly can. There we go. Well, now the tree's in place. Looks pretty straight. I may pull it a little bit one way or the other to get it perfect in just a minute. But once the tree is in place, I'll backfill around the root ball here, and then I'll make a dam, a donut, if you will, around the root ball of the plant, so that any water or rainfall that comes down will direct water right into the root ball where the roots of the tree are going to be growing. Now that I have the tree upright and have the dirt put around it and made that nice donut there, the next thing we can do while the tree is still sort of trussed up like this is to mulch underneath. It's one of the things that, you know, sometimes I see it forgotten about, but mulch is one of the things that almost guarantees good health for a tree. Otherwise, you'd have grass growing underneath it, and grass grabs every bit of the moisture and the fertilizer, nutrients that this tree needs. The grass would get it otherwise. So we'll keep the grass away by mulching. Now with the mulch in place, we can finally perform the great unveiling of the tree. Cut the string that's been holding the limbs together. There we go. Let's open up at the top. Oh, there we go. What a nice form on this tree. Oh, something else that I haven't pointed out. Look at the fruit on it. See that fruit that comes down from the limb? Sometimes it'll actually stick up above the limb. And that fruit is edible. Not many people eat it, but animals do certainly. And it'll be what comes onto the tree following the flowers in May. Usually you'll notice it in July and August as it turns sort of a pinkish, yellowish red color there. So remember, right plant, right place, right time, right planting technique. And if you combine all those things, you can just about guarantee your plants are going to be happy in the landscape. My last couple of chores here, I'll give it a very deep watering. I'll give it 40 or 50 gallons to really get that root ball nice and hydrated and the soil around it as well. I'll trim off some of the dead twigs that I see here on the interior of the tree, and this Coosa dogwood is going to have a long and happy life in the landscape. We have gotten more emails than you can shake a stick at through our RM2 garden satellite receiver. The latest one comes from Larry Dale Martin in Atlanta, and Larry Dale says, Walter, I've put soaker hoses underneath my shrubbery and in my flower beds. Now I need to know, how long do I let the soaker hoses run? Well, the rule of thumb, Larry Dale, is that you let the soaker hose run until the area about 6 inches deep underneath has been soaked thoroughly. Now, if your soaker hose has a little blue-gray washer on the end, that little washer has been calibrated to apply about 1 gallon of water per foot per hour. And so all you have to do is to get a timer, one of those little $15 timers that you can set and forget about. Set it to run for an hour. That will apply just the amount of water to soak the ground 6 inches underneath, and that'll keep your shrubs and your flowers happy. And by the way, congratulations. This is a really, really good way to save water, and that's always important during the summertime in the Southeast. You know, when you think of garden tools, you might think of your trowel or your shovel or maybe your pruner as a garden tool. But there's one tool that gardeners use all the time. And it's a tool that if you get the right one, it'll be a thing of pleasure to use. And if you get the wrong one, man, it is a pain in the patootie to use it in the garden. And of course, I'm talking about garden hoses. You can get a lot of different quality garden hoses at home improvement stores and hardware stores and places like that. But the biggest way that I tell the difference between quality on hoses is by looking at the brass components, the ends, the male and the female end. Look at the two ends right here. And notice that the one that's on the right has much thicker brass on it. The one that's on the left, a little bit thinner brass. And I'll tell you, as one who has left this out in the driveway and run over it with a car, and somebody who's also stepped on a hose before, the thickness of the brass really makes a big difference. Now, most reasonable quality hoses have a fiber reinforcement in it, which helps not only for the strength of the hose so it doesn't blow up when you leave it out in the sunshine and the water pressure gets pretty high in it, but it also, in a sense, helps it to keep from kinking, although there are some with thicker walls that don't kink nearly as bad as some of the thinner-walled fiber reinforced hoses. But you know, something that really bothers me is when I drive down the street and see a perfectly good hose that's in the trash can because somebody damaged it, because they ran over it or stepped on it or did something to damage it. And so I think, gosh, for just a few dollars, you could repair that hose and make it brand new. Now, here's a hose right here. Somebody ran over it with a lawnmower. I name no names, I cast no blame, but somebody ran over it with a lawnmower, and it's easy to fix. And also, you can upgrade this with one of these brass fittings that are a little bit thicker brass, so that they can be substituted in the place of the thinner brass which this hose came with. All you got to do to repair a hose is pretty simple. All you need is a clipper of some sort. We'll just use my pruners right now to prune off the end of the hose to make it nice and square like that. We have a female end on this other end, so we'll take our clamp and put it on, and then press the male end down into the hose like this, all the way down in there. You can lubricate it a little bit with water if you want to, and then put the clamp in place, take a screwdriver, screw it in. I think these brass repair pieces are so much better, so much heavier duty than the plastic ones. If you want to spend your money on the plastic ones, okay. But for another $1 or $2, you can get one of these brass ones. As I said, this heavy-duty brass right that withstands a lot of damage in the garden. So if you get good quality hoses, you can use them for years and years and years and years. If they have good, heavy quality brass on the ends of them, they won't get hurt by people misusing them, as sometimes happens in the garden. And if you learn the skill of repairing hoses, then you'll have hoses of any length for any place, for any use in your garden, just with a little bit of skill and knowledge on your part. With just a couple of dollars in parts, you can make a busted hose as good as brand new. Well, if you have questions about what you've seen on today's show, you can always contact us online at www.gardeningingeorgia.com. I'm Walter Reeves, hoping you will join us next time for another edition of Gardening in Georgia.
Funding for Gardening in Georgia is provided by supporters of Georgia Public Broadcasting. Thank you. Production partnership comes from
the University of Georgia College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences and UGA Cooperative Extension, with offices in most Georgia counties, bringing lifelong learning and research from the University of Georgia to the everyday lives of Georgians.